I'll let you go ahead and hit play on that while I read your introduction. All right, so our next presenter is Susannah Broyles from Texas State University. She is going to be presenting on implementing ArchivesSpace from start to finish, and finish is in quotes. Texas State University Libraries recently launched ArchivesSpace, incorporating over 300 finding aids for university archives and the Whitliff collections. This presentation will provide a high-level overview of our year-long journey, their year-long journey, not mine. I have very little to do with it. Migrating from 2 different platforms, creating a shared style guide and input manual, performing data cleanup, designing the public user interface, including customizing the PDF downloads on the PUI, and finally having the site go live. Susannah will also discuss tips, tricks, and things that they wish they had known earlier, as well as next steps. Thanks. Here's Susannah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susannah Broyles, the project archivist at the Whitliff Collections at Texas State University. And like Jessica said, I'm basically going to be talking about our ArchivesSpace implementation. What I'm hoping to provide is the kind of information, lessons, tips, and tricks that I really wish I had known 2 years ago when we started this project. And so I'm going to focus on what went well, along with some of the surprises that we encountered, because there's always surprises. So just as a bit of background, the libraries at Texas State have 2 special collections, University Archives and the Whitliff. We are 2 completely separate entities in the library, and we manage our collections independently. So as you can see, University Archives is the repository documenting the institutional history of Texas State and the local history of Hays County and San Marcos, Texas. And so for ArchivesSpace purposes, the majority of the finding aids are record groups described according to MPLP, although they do have some more traditionally processed presidential and faculty papers. While we at the Whitliff, we document the creative output of Texas and the regional southwestern United States with a focus on literature, film, music, and photography. Our collections are primarily personal papers and manuscripts. And our funding aids are processed with full series, sub-series, and in some cases down to the item level. We do also have preliminary inventories to many collections that have been accessioned to MPLP standards with basic box and folder descriptions. So the first decision we had to make was that we had both repositories share an instance, and that was just purely practical because our collections are relatively small. And while my presentation really focuses on the planning for the Whitliff side of the implementation, I will discuss areas where there was need for collaboration and sharing across the ASpace instance, rather. So again, just more background. We have the Whitliff over 150 fully processed manuscript collections and nearly 1,000 of those additional preliminary inventories that range from accessions of a handful of folders to hundreds of linear feet. So there is a wide range of materials. And just so the way it used to be, and actually still is, but that's neither here nor there. So we've been presenting our finding aids up to this point simply through an A to Z list of authors and musicians' names, linking to collection pages and then linking out to a printable PDF. There was no way to search across collections or really provide any meaningful subject terms or link data. Edits and revisions were cumbersome and often simply just not done, and it was outdated. So not really ideal. However, there was one thing that we liked, really our curators liked. They could quickly put up new collection pages and show donors that the material was accessible. So before ASpace, we entered a few funding aids into Archon, but we never really launched it before it became obsolete. At the same time we were doing that, University Archives was using Archivist Toolkit, again, no longer functioning. So it became clear that ArchivesSpace was the answer to both of our problems. So just for visuals, this is our lovely A to Z list. And so with people with intimate knowledge about Southwestern literature and music works perfectly fine. But for those without that subject specialty, not so much. And like I said, then you go into the collection page. This is for one of our authors, John Graves. And then you can get to the printable PDF of his finding aid. So again, every collection is super siloed, and there's basically no way to search across any of them. So, hang on. We have a relatively small team, and as you can see, the Whitliff, we have 3 full-time archivists, 1 part-time archives assistant. University Archives has 2 full-time, and then we reached out to the library programmer. We have 1 for our entire library, and to help with the more technical side of the implementation. And so, as part of our preparation, we were originally going to have Leosis provide on-site training for our team, but we scheduled it right after spring break 2020, and that happened. So we ended up being the first online training session that they transitioned to later that fall. Again, thank you, Brittany, Jessica, and Christine. Y'all did amazing work. And so, tip number 1, planning. Plan like you never planned for anything else before. So, thankfully, we had an outside incentive. Our regional aggregator, Texas Archival Resources Online, TARO, was launching a massive overhaul. So we had a deadline of roughly a year to get clean EAD experts to them. So we had a year to completely get ArchivesSpace launched. So that was fun. So priority 1 was to replicate the TARO content. And then priority 2 was to replicate the A to Z list content, which I just showed you. And priority 3 was everything else. So you can see that we really had a game plan. And again, because we like planning, we actually set benchmarks in the cuddly goals kind of way, just with the targets we wanted to meet in each of those cutos. And finally, because, again, we like planning, we drafted a roadmap for the various short-term goals and action items assigned to various team members. We kept this on a shared team site and met regularly to assess it, update it, and usually celebrate successes. This is a tiny portion of what ours look like, but it goes on for a lot longer. But again, just really keeping ourselves on track. So my second piece of advice is document everything. So we created a shared manual with University Archives. It's a very broad, high-level overview of usage that really focuses on the instance-wide best practices and minimum requirements for fields. It's very basic and includes just instructions on everything from how to create an agent record to how to create collection hierarchy. We purposely kept it very focused on the basic technical usage of ArchivesSpace that we both shared, because we quickly found out that our best practices and standards are very different. So again, and of course it's DAX compliant because we're professionals. You can just see how basic it is, and just it really walks you through everything that you need to create records. But besides other documentation nerds like me, who's going to read 30 pages of this? Not very many people. So we created a quick guide for the Whitliff that focuses on our own standards and the pertinent information that our staff would need to know while entering or editing a record. It documents local usage, gives examples, and the required information for every field. And as a side note, none of our jobs are exclusively based in namespace, so it makes it so much easier to find answers for questions and troubleshoot specific issues rather than having to go through the manual. In that same vein, I also created a frequently asked questions section that I update as needed with any questions that come up from staff. So we have documentation of both how we're using ArchivesSpace and what issues have come up in the past. So really just keeping things, just documenting everything that we can. And this is the first page of our quick guide. And I just want to quickly highlight how we how we structured it. So we went through every single field in the resource record in Odo and discussed what data we wanted to enter into it and how it should be formatted. So we highlighted it in red if it was required, and adding the appropriate DAX rule if you needed more guidance, and then really went into detail giving real-life Whitliff examples in the purple font. You can see the McCarthy papers and how we use capitalization, and just really breaks it down to the smallest decisions. And basically, this was a wonderful tool to standardize and codify our best practices. And also, it's just easy to use, which was our main idea with this. So we have all these standards and best practices now. And so, instance-wide cleanup time. So, along with University Archives, we cleaned up our shared subject and agent records, which had been imported from 2 different systems from a variety of users, from staff to student workers to volunteers, over the past 25, 30 years. So there was a big variety in what was in there. So we added Library of Congress number 30 and subject heading links as applicable. We, of course, deleted duplicates, misspellings, and like Rachel mentioned, we really tried to use more inclusive vocabularies whenever we were able to, most notably homotheus, because that's what works best for our collections. Okay, so challenges, because there's always challenges. So as we started remediating both the Whitliff and University Archives records, it became quickly evident that both migrations led to some major-ish inconsistencies in the metadata formatting and mapping. So for the first few collections, I thought it'd be easier just to edit the metadata in the records. That didn't last long. I found that deleting the inputted records and starting over with a clean resource record was the best way to proceed, especially since, as you might be able to see, we had superfluous and more challengingly outdated identifier numbers at the file level. That's a snippet of Dick Revis papers, I think those 150 boxes. And at every file level, there is a Alcon instance collection content number that does not align with anything. So check your EED all the time, because that's not fun to edit. Okay, so basic tip, defaults make everything easier and better. So you can see that we use default text in our note fields, and has single-handedly been the biggest help. So it both gives you a visual cue which notes are required, along with not having to worry about the boilerplate text, and especially ensuring proper EAD-friendly formatting for links and other XML formatting issues. Yes, I cannot stress how big of a game changer defaults have been. Okay, so as we got ready to go live with our instance in that September, we started thinking about how to make this instance really our own. And the first thing that we knew is we wanted it to feel like it was part of our library's website. So as a visual, this is our catalog. It's lovely. And we worked with our amazing programmer to make this. And you can see the same maroon banner, the star logo, and also very collection-friendly search tips. So really, we made it as customized as we possibly could. And we really like it. But the one issue that we had with ArchivesSpace was the out-of-the-box PDFs generated on the PUI. So this is the correspondence series of our J. Howard Wolmer collection of Comic McCarthy. Try saying that 3 times fast. So our use of the notes field makes the out-of-the-package PDF hard to read and really just not very user-friendly. You can see that all of our notes, the label is bolded, so that overwhelms the actual title of the item. Let's see. We have a lot of very text-heavy collections, being a literary archive, and the repetition of text gets, well, repetitive very quickly. So we reached out to Hudson Malongo, who was involved with the design of ArchivesSpace's technical architecture, to see if they could help us customize the PDF plugin. Basically, we wanted to know if the PDFs could look like our existing finding aids. So we gave them this wish list. So having the box photo information on the left, not displaying the material format of subject terms at every file level, and using the bold type for series and sub-series headings, but not for every notes label because, like I said, we use notes a lot. And just a generally cleaner, more human-readable look. And they did. And so you can see the difference. On the left is out-of-the-box PDF. On the right is after the Hudson Malongo. And you can see that they pretty much got every item on our wish list. And I can't say how happy we are about this. It's been really helpful for both our researchers and our staff just to have a more readable PDF. And one more visual. The left is the Hudson Malongo. The right is our original finding aids. So again, very, very similar. And so we reached out to James Bolin at Hudson Malongo, and we asked him if there was anything he would want archivists to know about. And he came up with this amazing quote. So also, please note the GitHub link at the top. So please feel free to adapt it to your needs because we are extremely happy with it. And so finally, we finished? Absolutely not. At the same time we were doing this, we also were creating a new Islandera digital platform. So now we're trying to link those two. And of course, we're just continuing to add new finding aids and seeing if there was an easier way that we can accession and inventory and community accruals via ArchivesSpace, and working with the curators to replicate what we, and they especially, liked about the web-based A to Z listings. And thank you so much. If you have any questions at all or want to see any of our documentations, please reach out. I'm more than happy to share. Thanks.
Thank you, Susannah. I will go ahead and cut this question off. If you would be willing to share your documentation, if you could send that to me, I will link it in the wiki. So yeah, that sounds good. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. We're running a little behind, but we'll still take a full 15-minute break, I promise.